There is a fish in the open ocean that weighs as much as a small car. It has no tail. It drifts near the surface with one enormous fin cutting the water like a slow grey sail. And when people see it for the first time, they often think something has gone wrong, that something is broken or lost or dying. It is none of those things. It has been living exactly this way for millions of years. Hello there, and welcome to Deep Sea Slumber. Tonight, we drift out into the open blue, far past the coastlines and the shallow shelves where the seafloor is still visible, out into the wide and sunlit middle of the ocean, where this strange, enormous animal turns slowly in the current and goes about the quiet work of being itself. The ocean sunfish is the heaviest bony fish alive on Earth. Not one of the heaviest, the heaviest. And yet, when you see one, the first feeling is not awe at something immense and powerful. It is something closer to bewilderment. The animal looks, to human eyes, like a fish that someone forgot to finish. The body is vast and flattened, almost circular, and where the tail should be, there is only a soft, scalloped edge, a fringe of flesh called a clavus, which is not quite a fin and not quite a tail, and looks like neither. The whole creature seems like an idea that was abandoned halfway through. But here is the thing the sunfish has always known, drifting in its slow and patient way through waters we will never visit. It was never unfinished. It was never abandoned. It is one of the most successful experiments in vertebrate life on this planet, ancient and improbable and entirely real. What looks like a mistake to us is, in fact, a different kind of answer to the same questions every living thing must solve. How to move, how to eat, how to survive long enough to matter. Tonight, we stay with that question. We follow this animal through its strange and spacious life, through the warm surface layers where it basks, and the cold, dark water where it hunts, and the long, slow middle distances of the open sea where it simply drifts and breathes and continues. We let it be what it is, rather than what we expected. And somewhere in that process, something in us may soften too. Not just toward the sunfish, toward the whole idea that life does not owe us the shapes we recognize. There is something restful in that, something that makes the world feel larger and less urgent. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. Now, let your shoulders settle, not a deliberate thing, just a noticing. The weight of them, the way they carry the day without being asked. Let that weight go somewhere else for a while. Let it go into the surface you're resting on, which will hold it without effort. Your breath can slow. It doesn't need to be managed or counted. The ocean sunfish breathes through gills that open and close in the same unhurried rhythm it has always used, whether it is drifting near the surface or descending into cold and quiet water far below. There is nothing in that rhythm that rushes. There is no urgency in it at all. Your breath can find something like that too, if you let it. Imagine the surface of the open ocean at the end of the afternoon. The light is long and golden, slanting down through the water in slow columns that shift as the surface moves. It is warm here. It is very quiet. There is no land in any direction, only water and sky, and the soft sound of the sea moving against itself. And somewhere, just below the surface, a great rounded shadow turns, slowly, in the light. Too large to be a mistake, too calm to be afraid. That is where we are going tonight. Not towards something dramatic, not toward a chase or a storm, or a creature defined by power and speed. We are going towards something quieter than that, something vast and unhurried that has been drifting through warm blue water since long before any of us were here, and will go on drifting long after tonight is over. We are going to spend some time in its company, to let its patience become, for a little while, our own. The open ocean is not empty. It only looks that way from a distance. Up close, or as close as we can come, here in the dark, with nothing required of us but to listen. It is full of subtle life, subtle movement, subtle meaning. The sunfish knows this. It has always known this. It moves through a world that most of us will never see, and it does so without apology, without hurry, without any awareness that it has ever been called strange. We could learn something from that. Let's begin. But the body has more surprises yet. The ocean sunfish is the largest bony fish alive. That sentence can sound wrong at first, because the mind usually reaches for something longer, sleeker, and more recognizably fish-shaped when it imagines record size in the sea. Yet a mature sunfish can weigh well over 2,000 kilograms, and some of the largest measured individuals have approached or exceeded that in ways that make even seasoned researchers pause. It is a giant, not in the style of a torpedo or a shark, but in the style of a drifting wall, a broad and flattened body that rises through the water with a height that can rival its length. It is large in a way that unsettles expectation, and that matters. A shark may be larger in many famous cases, but sharks are cartilaginous fish. Their skeletons are built from cartilage rather than true bone. The sunfish belongs to the other great branch, the bony fishes, and within that immense and varied company, no living species grows heavier. That is why the claim is so quietly startling. The largest bony fish alive looks less like a perfected swimmer and more like a sketch that stopped early. It seems to have lost the usual fish arrangement somewhere along the way, as though the back half should continue but does not. Even before anyone learns its anatomy, the eye notices an absence, and it keeps returning to that absence because human minds are quick to compare bodies against familiar plans. The sunfish does not cooperate with the plan we expect. Most fish are read from front to back. There is a head, then a tapering trunk, then the narrowing section called the caudal peduncle, and then the tail, which seems to complete the sentence of the body. We are so used to that pattern that we may not realize how deeply we rely on it until we meet an animal that disrupts it. The sunfish does disrupt it, and the result is almost unsettlingly simple. The body rises high, extends only so far, and then ends in a blunt, rippling edge called a clavus, rather than in a true tail. The familiar ending never arrives. It feels unfinished. What makes this stranger is that the missing tail is not really missing in the casual sense of injury or loss. It is the result of development and ancestry of a fish lineage whose rear fin structures changed so extensively that the adult body closes itself in a different way. In young stages, the body plan is less extreme, but as the fish grows, the posterior region is transformed, and the adult becomes that famous shape. Compressed from side to side, tall from top to bottom, and abruptly concluded at the back. The animal is not damaged. It is complete. In other words, our sense of wrongness belongs to us. The sunfish is often described as if it barely functions because it does not display the visual cues we associate with competence. It lacks the pointed symmetry of pursuit hunters. It lacks the obvious propeller at the rear. It lacks the balanced proportion that makes many fish seem instantly purposeful. Yet it lives across broad reaches of the open ocean, survives long migrations, dives deep, rises again, feeds, grows, and reproduces. It is doing the quiet work of an animal whose design is not asking for approval. That may be part of its power. There are creatures that impress by matching our intuitions about strength, speed, or elegance. The sunfish impresses by surviving while violating those intuitions almost one by one. It is a reminder that human judgment often mistakes familiarity for function and unfamiliarity for failure. The ocean does not make that mistake. Its shape is broader than many people realize. When people hear that a sunfish can be 3 meters long, they may picture something substantial, but still somewhat ordinary. Yet length alone understates the animal, because the great visual fact of a sunfish is not just how far it extends from nose to rear edge, but how high it stands in the water once the dorsal fin and anal fin are included. From the tip of the upper fin to the tip of the lower, a large sunfish can reach extraordinary height, becoming less a horizontal fish than a moving disc with tall banners above and below. Seen from the side, it can look almost architectural, a door drifting through blue. That flattened form is called laterally compressed, meaning the body is narrow from side to side and broad in profile. Many fish are laterally compressed to some degree, especially those living among reefs or in places where maneuverability matters. But the sunfish takes the principle into unusual territory, enlarging the body into something that seems almost too thin for its height and mass, as though the animal has been pressed between patient hands. Yet this is not fragility. A flattened body changes how an animal interacts with water, with turning, and with vertical fin movement. It creates large surfaces for muscle attachment and allows those long dorsal and anal fins to become the main engines of motion, a fact that becomes more important the longer one looks at the sunfish. The shape that first seems awkward is tied to a whole different style of swimming, one that does not depend on sweeping a forked tail from side to side. The strange outline is not decoration. It is commitment. Bodies are arguments. The tuna argues for speed through streamlining and relentless muscular power. The sunfish argues for another way of occupying the pelagic world, one built around a different relationship with drag, maneuvering, depth, and prey. What looks at first like a compromise can, over time, reveal itself as a specialized answer. Slow answers are still answers. Its skin adds to the impression of improbability. Sunfish skin is thick, rough, and often compared to sandpaper or hide. In some places, it can be several centimeters thick, forming an outer layer more substantial than people expect from a fish that already appears strange in every outline. Beneath that skin is a body not arranged like the neat muscular forms of many familiar swimmers, but dense and unusual, with tissues adapted to a life that does not need to resemble a salmon or a mackerel in order to work. Touch would likely make it stranger still. That thickness means something. A large animal living in open water carries its surface through a world of parasites, predators, collisions, currents, and changing temperatures. Thick skin is protection, but it is also presence, a kind of outer endurance. The sunfish can seem flimsy from a distance because its silhouette is so odd, yet up close, much of it is built with a quiet sturdiness. Even softness in nature is often armored in ways we do not first see. Then there is the mouth, The teeth of a sunfish are fused into a beak-like structure, so the mouth cannot close in the ordinary fish way. It may seem slightly open, with the face holding an expression people often read as vacant or bewildered. But expression is one of the oldest traps in animal perception. We borrow human meaning too quickly, especially when a face is unfamiliar. The face is not confused, it is specialized. Fused teeth are not an accident of poor design. They are part of a lineage related to pufferfishes and triggerfishes, a branch of bony fish that has its own long history of rearranging the standard fish toolkit. The sunfish is not a regular fish stretched into absurdity. It comes from ancestors already willing, in evolutionary terms, to experiment with body plans, jaws, and defenses. Its strangeness has relatives. That changes the feeling of it. A creature can seem ridiculous when taken alone, as if nature briefly lost its concentration. It becomes more legible when placed within lineage, where each odd trait is not random, but inherited, modified, and shaped by older patterns. The sunfish is peculiar, yes, but it is not isolated from history. It belongs to a family of quiet rule breakers. The rear edge of the body may be the strangest part of all. Where a tail should be, the sunfish has the clavus, a structure formed by modified fin rays, and the collapsed architecture of what would once have been a more typical fish ending. The clavus does not beat like a conventional tail fin. It acts more like a rudder or stabilizing surface, helping control movement while the dorsal and anal fins provide thrust. It can be scalloped, wavy, and almost ornamental in appearance. It looks improvised, and yet it is ancient enough to be inherited. This is one reason the sunfish appears to barely function. We see a giant body and instinctively search for the engine at the back. When that engine is absent, or seems absent, the whole animal can read as defective. But the sunfish did not lose its tail and then somehow continue despite the loss. It evolved a different arrangement altogether, and that arrangement has carried the lineage through real oceans and real time. Failure rarely lasts this long. Anatomy can survive for millions of years, only if it does enough of what life requires. Not perfectly, not elegantly by our standards. Just well enough, consistently enough, across generations and seas. The sunfish's shape may look like an exception to the rules, but evolution does not preserve exceptions for sentimental reasons. It preserves what, in context, keeps working. What makes this especially quieting is how little the body seems to care about our categories. To us, there is a strong visual distinction between something efficient and something absurd. To the sunfish, there is only whether the body can move, feed, grow, heal, and breed in the waters where it lives. The sea is not judging it on aesthetics. The sea is applying pressure, temperature, hunger, and hazard. The body answers those conditions in its own strange grammar, and the answer holds. There is also the matter of bone itself. As the largest bony fish, the sunfish carries an internal architecture of true bone, but not one weighted down into a massive armored frame. Bony fishes solved support in many different ways, and the sunfish's solution had to allow immense growth without becoming impossibly cumbersome. A very large body in open water is held partly by the buoyant medium itself, of course, but structure still matters, and the skeleton must be strong enough to support motion while remaining integrated with a deeply altered form. The result is not obvious strength. It is distributed strength that is often harder to recognize. We are quick to see power when it looks like a jaw, a claw, a tail, a burst of speed. Distributed power is quieter. It may look like simply being able to exist at this scale in this shape without collapsing into uselessness. The sunfish does that, and in doing so, it asks for a broader definition of what a successful body can be. Its size also changes the emotional experience of seeing it. A small, strange fish might seem whimsical. A giant, strange fish feels more serious because scale makes eccentricity harder to dismiss. When several tons of animal drift past with the outline of a coin, a finned millstone, or a severed fish half somehow still alive, the mind hesitates between laughter and awe. That hesitation is interesting. It is what happens when the world presents a form that does not fit smoothly into the drawers we keep ready. For a moment, thought becomes honest. It has to admit that life is under no obligation to look sensible before it works. That may be one of the deepest wonders here. The sunfish is not merely large, nor merely odd, nor merely a fish with a missing-looking tail. It is a living challenge to the habit of deciding too quickly what belongs and what does not. In open water, beneath shifting light, it moves as a complete sentence, written in a grammar older than our preferences. And once that begins to settle, the body looks different. Not normal, exactly. The sunfish may never feel normal to the human eye, but it can start to feel coherent, which is a softer and more interesting thing. Coherence does not require beauty in the usual sense. It only requires that the parts belong to one another and that the whole has found a way to continue. The sunfish has. It rises high in the water. It ends where we think it should go on. It carries bulk without the lines we expect from power. It seems, from some angles, almost too strange to have become the heaviest of all living bony fishes. Yet there it is, broad and patient, drifting through the pelagic dark and the bright surface layers alike, not apologizing for any of it. A body can look impossible and still be true. Perhaps that is why it stays with people. Not because it is comic, though some have laughed. Not because it is ugly, though many have called it that. It stays because it unsettles the quiet assumptions hidden inside the word fish, and once those assumptions loosen, something larger loosens with them. The ocean has room for forms that seem to barely make sense, and still they live, and still, somehow, they grow. And if the adult body seems impossible, the journey into that body is stranger still. An ocean sunfish begins life so small that it could rest on a fingertip. Yet that near-invisible beginning can become a fish weighing more than 2,000 kilograms. Between those two states lies one of the most extreme growth stories known among vertebrates. It feels less like ordinary development than like a scale model being slowly replaced by weather. At the beginning, it does not look like the familiar adult at all. The larva is tiny, rounded, and armed with structures that seem almost unrelated to the drifting giant it will become. Early sunfish larvae even bear spines, and in some stages they resemble the young of their pufferfish relatives more than the broad, flattened adult body that later appears. The future giant starts by wearing a very different plan. That matters because growth is not only about becoming larger, it is also about becoming less like your first self. The sunfish does not simply inflate from small to large. It passes through forms, shedding one geometry and settling into another, as though evolution had left traces of older kin in the nursery before guiding the body toward its own strange conclusion. Their eggs are part of this scale story too. Ocean sunfish can produce an astonishing number of them, tens of millions in a single female, among the highest counts known for any vertebrate. Most will never survive. They drift into a sea full of mouths, currents, hunger, accident, and indifference. Vast numbers are the price of beginning life as something so small and so exposed. That is why the early life of a sunfish is built on probability rather than protection. There is no nest to guard, no parent to return, no sheltered nursery prepared in advance. Instead, there is abundance, and from that abundance, a few individuals continue. Life in the open ocean often solves danger, not by making childhood safe, but by making childhood numerous. A newly hatched larva lives in a world where scale changes the meaning of everything. Water does not feel the same to a tiny body as it does to a giant one. Viscosity matters more. Currents that an adult might barely register can carry a larva away like weather-lifting dust. Prey, predators, even the texture of movement itself belong to another kind of ocean. What makes this hard to picture is that we tend to imagine growth as continuity. We picture a smaller version of the same creature, just steadily increasing in size. But the sunfish's life asks for a stranger image. First, there is a minute drifting form living in a physics of smallness. Much later, there is a broad, towering fish moving through a very different sea, though the water is the same. And between those worlds, the rate of change is extraordinary. Sunfish are often described as capable of increasing their mass by millions of times from larva to adult. The exact figures vary between studies and species, but the overall truth remains startling. Few animals begin so negligible and end so immense while staying recognizably one life. That scale of growth requires relentless intake. Tissues have to be built. Bones, muscles, skin, organs, and the long fin surfaces of the adult all must be assembled from energy gathered day after day from the sea. Growth of this kind is not a single leap. It is the quiet arithmetic of feeding, surviving, and converting drifting food into body. Yet speed is part of the story. Young sunfish can grow with unusual rapidity under favorable conditions, and this is likely not a luxury, but a necessity. Small bodies are vulnerable bodies. A larva that remains tiny for too long lives inside the easiest size category for predators to swallow. Growing quickly can be a way of escaping a dangerous scale. In other words, size itself becomes a defense. Not perfect safety, but a changing relationship with risk. There is a threshold in many marine lives where being larger does not simply mean being older. It means the world has fewer mouths that can take you whole. To grow fast is, in a sense, to hurry out of childhood before the ocean notices. The form changes as this happens. Those larval spines are lost. The body deepens and flattens. The profile that once looked more like a tiny armored relative begins moving toward the odd severity of the adult sunfish. It is a metamorphosis, though not in the dramatic language of caterpillar and butterfly. It is quieter, more marine, but no less profound. And yet the adult shape can only be reached by passing through these less familiar stages. The giant at the surface, the one people photograph and doubt, was once a small drifting thing with temporary defenses and a body plan full of old family resemblance. Growth here is also a kind of forgetting. Certain features are needed briefly, then left behind as the animal enters another life. There is something ancient in that pattern. Many marine animals begin as versions of themselves that seem almost anonymous, as if the sea prefers to start with a whisper before committing to detail. Identity arrives gradually. The adult sunfish, so visually unmistakable, begins in a form that could almost vanish into the crowd of planktonic lives. Scientists still do not know every detail of how long this transformation takes in the wild. Sunfish spend much of their lives in open water, which makes them difficult to follow continuously from hatchling to full adult. Some information comes from captive individuals, some from growth models, some from specimens collected at different sizes. The outline is clear even where the fine timing remains hidden. That uncertainty has its own quiet beauty. The sea lets us know the scale of the story without revealing every page. We know enough to understand that the growth is immense, the remodeling real, the transition from larva to giant, not merely large, but radical. But the exact tempo remains partly beneath observation, still moving in distant water. One reason this growth can happen at all is that fish do not grow in the same closed way many mammals do. Many fish continue growing throughout life, though often more slowly with age, and the sunfish seems to carry that openness to an extreme. There is no single adult size fixed in advance in the neat way we often expect. There is instead a life still adding, still widening into itself. That is why adults can vary so greatly. Some are large by any measure. Others become enormous beyond what seems reasonable for a fish with such an odd outline. Growth does not stop at the moment the body looks complete to us. The sea has no reason to honor our sense of enough. And what a body it is feeding. The sunfish's tissues are not light decorations around a simple frame. This is a substantial animal with a heavy skull, thick skin, strong fin bases, and the mass required to inhabit wide temperature ranges and large vertical spaces in the water column. Immensity has to be paid for. Every kilogram comes from many earlier meals, gathered patiently from a sea that often looks empty. This is where the life history becomes almost philosophical. A tiny larva and a massive adult are not merely different sizes. They are different claims upon the world. The larva asks for almost nothing and survives by being one of many. The adult asks for room, food, time, and years of successful continuation. It becomes not just a survivor, but a presence. Yet abundance and fragility remain near the beginning. With tens of millions of eggs, most lives end before they can properly begin. That can sound harsh when stated plainly, but open ocean life has long been shaped by this arithmetic. The sea produces in excess, and from that excess emerges the occasional giant, carrying forward all the probability that failed around it. In that sense, every adult sunfish is a compression of improbability. Not one miracle, but countless narrow survivals layered together. An egg that was not eaten, a larva that found food, a juvenile that grew quickly enough, a body that kept changing successfully as the sea kept testing it. The giant we notice at the surface is made of many quiet escapes. What makes this especially strange is how unheroic the result appears. The sunfish does not advertise triumph in a way human eyes easily admire. It does not become sleek like a tuna or visibly armed like a shark. It becomes broad, blunt, and serene, as if one of the most difficult developmental journeys in the ocean ended not in drama, but in calm. That may be part of why it stays in the mind. We are used to extreme growth expressing itself through obvious power. Bigger antlers, sharper teeth, faster muscle. The sunfish offers another possibility. Growth can also produce oddness, stillness, and a body that seems almost simplified by success, as though the ocean kept only what this life truly needed. There is another layer to that. Because young sunfish look more conventionally fish-like than adults, the life history almost reverses our expectations. Many animals begin in strange forms and mature into something more familiar. The sunfish begins closer to our idea of a fish and grows into something that seems less and less willing to obey the template. Age does not make it ordinary, it makes it stranger. And that says something gentle about evolution. It does not move toward familiarity. It does not care what shape feels finished to us. It keeps whatever works long enough to continue. The result can be a larva with spines, a juvenile in transition, and an adult so unusual that people laugh at it before they understand what they are seeing. Some of the fastest growth recorded in captive young sunfish is almost difficult to believe, with juveniles increasing in size at rates that make their future mass seem suddenly less impossible. These are not perfect mirrors of wildlife, of course. Conditions differ. But they offer a glimpse of what the body is capable of when food is available and survival continues uninterrupted. That glimpse helps solve part of the puzzle. A giant adult seems less impossible when you realize the body is built by a system prepared to grow with unusual determination. The sunfish does not reach its final scale by a leisurely drift alone. Beneath the calm surface of its life is a developmental urgency, especially early on, when becoming larger may be the clearest path toward remaining alive. Even so, the end result is not hurry. It is breadth. It is the slow authority of a large body in open water. Growth begins in danger, under pressure from predators and chance, but it settles eventually into another condition altogether. The fish that once needed speed of development becomes, in time, a patient giant moving through blue distances. There is something moving in that transition from peril to presence. Smallness is exposed. Great size, in this case, becomes a kind of quiet. Not invisibility, but composure. The adult sunfish still faces risks, still lives in a hard sea, but its scale changes the emotional shape of its existence. It no longer seems to be trying to become. It simply is. And all of that begins in an egg too small to notice. The open ocean is full of such hidden beginnings. Vast animals often start as drifting fragments, nearly erased by the scale around them. The sunfish only makes that truth harder to ignore because the ending is so large and so visually strange. It asks us to hold both extremes at once. A speck, a giant. That is a useful kind of wonder. Not bright or loud, just steady. It reminds us that life does not announce its final form at the start. Sometimes it begins as almost nothing, then keeps gathering itself, cell by cell, meal by meal, risk by risk, until one day it rises broadside near the surface, and sunlight finds a body that once could not have cast a shadow at all. And then, after all that growth, it still has to move. But the body has more surprises yet. Shape begins to make more sense once it starts to move. From a distance, an ocean sunfish can seem like a loose piece of the sea, as if the current were deciding for it. Yet, when you stay with the movement long enough, another pattern appears, and the animal begins to look less broken than unfamiliar. Most fish push from behind. Their bodies bend from side to side, and the tail throws water backward in repeated strokes. The sunfish does something quieter and stranger, lifting its tall dorsal fin and matching anal fin below so that both beat together, carrying the body forward through the open water with a steady, balanced pulse. That is why the missing-looking tail matters so much. The usual engine of a fish has been reduced and reshaped into a short, blunt edge called the clavus, while the real work has been given to those two long fins above and below. In other words, the sunfish travels not by swishing its rear half through the sea, but by turning itself into a kind of living blade, moving on paired surfaces that rise and fall through the water. Seen from the side, the motion can look almost hesitant at first. The body does not flex in the familiar way. It holds itself broad and flattened, while the fins sweep in a coordinated rhythm. And because the animal is so large, each stroke can seem slower than it really is, as though time itself has widened around it. Then the pattern settles in, and what first felt awkward begins to feel exact. There is a reason people reach for the language of wings. The fins do not merely flap. They trace controlled arcs, pressing against the water and drawing lift from it, so that the fish advances by managing flow rather than by brute tail thrust, and the whole body glides with an odd vertical dignity that is difficult to compare to anything more familiar. It is not winged, of course, but it is close enough to stir that thought. What makes this so striking is not only that it works, but that it asks us to loosen our picture of what fish movement should be. We are used to speed looking sleek and competence looking symmetrical in a certain way. The sunfish offers another answer, one where propulsion comes from surfaces that seem misplaced until they begin their patient labor and reveal that the body was organized around a different idea all along. When the fish wants to turn, the adjustment can be subtle. A change in the angle of one fin, a slight difference in force between the top and bottom stroke, and the heavy disc of the body begins to yaw through blue water with more control than its outline suggests. The movement is not abrupt. It is more like weather shifting across an open sky. That comparison fits, because the motion does not feel mechanical. It feels distributed. The animal does not appear to lurch from one decision to the next, but to alter itself gradually within the water, using surface, pressure, and balance so that a turn becomes less a command than a settling into a new direction. There is something patient in that, something almost atmospheric. Yet the sea is not empty resistance. Water has texture at every scale. It slips, presses, curls, and drags, and any body moving through it is in conversation with those forces, whether it knows it or not. The sunfish seems built for a conversation most other fish solve differently, accepting a broad exposed shape, and then making that shape workable through fin control, steadiness, and a style of propulsion that favors glide as much as drive. This is where clumsiness begins to dissolve. An animal can look inefficient when judged by the wrong task. If one expects bursts of pursuit, tight schooling maneuvers, or sudden darting escapes, the sunfish does indeed seem strangely unequipped. But that expectation belongs to other lives. In the slower, wider logic of its own world, what matters is not performing agility for our eyes. What matters is moving enough and well enough through a vast pelagic home. And the open ocean rewards a different kind of competence. There are long distances with little structure, wide layers of water with changing temperatures, drifting prey that does not demand a chase so much as a calm and continuous search, and predators best met not by acrobatic display, but by size, toughness, and the ability to keep going. That is why a motion style can seem almost understated here. It is fitted to a life where endurance and orientation may matter more than flourish. If you were to watch a sunfish from below, the symmetry would become clearer. The dorsal fin rises into light, the anal fin answers beneath, and the body travels between them like a suspended center, held and advanced by a pair of movements that mirror one another across the fish's middle line. The effect is strangely clean. What looked unfinished from the side begins to look resolved. The clavus, that truncated end where a tail might seem as if it ought to continue, still has a role. It helps with steering and stability rather than serving as the main propulsive engine. And this matters because it shows that the sunfish has not simply lost something and coped poorly afterward. The rear edge has been folded into another plan. Loss in evolution often turns out to be reallocation. That is one of the quieter wonders of the animal. We often imagine evolution adding useful things piece by piece, as though success were a steady accumulation of better parts. Yet sometimes a lineage changes by reducing one structure and enlarging another, by shifting labor around the body until a familiar design gives way to a strange but workable one. The sunfish carries that history openly. It looks like revision made visible. There are moments when the fish tilts, and then the whole body catches the light in a brief silver plane. In those moments, it can seem almost stationary, though it is still advancing, because the strokes are so even, and the ocean around it so large that motion becomes difficult to measure. This is another reason people underestimate it. Slow does not mean idle. Quiet movement can still cover distance, and the larger the animal, the more deceptive that quiet can be. A body weighing hundreds or even thousands of kilograms does not need to twitch to make progress. It can proceed by accumulation, each fin stroke adding a little more forward travel, each glide preserving momentum until the fish has crossed a surprising reach of water with no dramatic display at all. The sea is full of such arithmetic. Great distances can be made out of small repeated acts. When researchers watch sunfish in the wild, whether near the surface or deeper down, they do not find a creature simply surrendering itself to drift. They find directed swimming, changes in depth, changes in orientation, and patterns that suggest an animal responding to its environment with more intention than its reputation allows. That matters because reputation can become a kind of blindness. Once we have called a creature foolish, every efficient action starts to look accidental. Yet accidental things do not persist like this. They do not grow huge, range widely, and continue across generations in one of the most demanding environments on Earth. The open ocean is too exacting for that. It does not care whether a body fits our sense of elegance. It only tests whether that body can survive, feed, avoid danger often enough, and carry its lineage onward through water that is beautiful and indifferent. So the sunfish's motion is not a joke nature forgot to correct. It is a solution under a different set of priorities. Broad body, tall fins, reduced tail, steady propulsion, manageable turning. Energy spent not on looking swift, but on being sufficient in a world where sufficiency, repeated every day, becomes survival. In other words, the fish does not fail to imitate the better-known forms of marine grace. It declines the template entirely. There is tenderness in seeing that clearly. Not sentimentality, only relief. A creature so often laughed at begins under patient attention to recover its coherence. The outline remains strange. The movement remains unlike the movement of most fish. And yet the strangeness is no longer emptiness. It is filled with function. It has reasons. Sometimes the sunfish seems to row itself upright through blue water, top fin and bottom fin, keeping time like matched oars that never touch the air. Sometimes it glides between strokes, and the whole body appears to settle forward rather than surge. Sometimes a current catches its broadside, and the fish adjusts, not with panic, but with a measured alteration of fin angle, accepting the push and then answering it. There is experience in that motion, though not the kind we usually praise. What makes this gentle to think about is the way the animal asks almost nothing from our old categories. It does not need to become sleek in order to be real. It does not need to resemble our private idea of competence. It only needs to move through its own element in a way that holds together, and it does. The proof is not in our approval. The proof is in the continuing body, gliding on. And there is a wider meaning beneath that. The ocean keeps producing lives that seem wrong until we understand the problem they were actually solving. Seen that way, the sunfish becomes less an absurd exception than a reminder that nature is not trying to satisfy expectation. It is trying, in countless quiet forms, to make a living thing possible. So when the sunfish crosses the water on those tall paired fins, it is doing more than swimming. It is revealing the hidden generosity of evolution, which does not insist on one correct outline for movement, but allows many, provided they can meet the sea on honest terms. Some bodies slice, some undulate, some pulse. And one immense fish, flat as a drifting moon, advances by lifting and lowering two long fins through the blue. The longer you watch, the less comic it seems. The body settles into its own logic. The water answers. The strokes continue, patient and even, until the animal feels less like a mistake than like a sentence written in a grammar, older and wider than our first impressions. And then it simply goes on, through the vast and quiet water, not gracefully in the usual sense, but truly in its own. And movement in the open sea is always tied to the question of what can be found there. For the ocean's sunfish, the answer is often something soft, not fish in frantic schools, and not prey that must be chased down in a burst of speed, but drifting bodies made mostly of water. Jellyfish, comb jellies, salps, siphonophores, and other gelatinous animals that gather and thin and gather again across the blue. They are easy to overlook from above. Yet, in the open ocean, what seems insubstantial can become a whole way of life. This is one of the quietest surprises about the sunfish. An animal so large appears, at first glance, to require dramatic meals. We imagine force, teeth, pursuit, and the clean logic of predator and capture. Yet its world often offers something softer than that. The feeding scene can be almost difficult to notice. A sunfish moves through water that looks nearly empty, its tall fins rowing with that patient, weather-like motion, and somewhere ahead, a pale shape hangs in the blue, loose at the edges, almost more event than object. There is no violent turn, no sudden acceleration. The fish simply adjusts its path and continues. Then the mouth opens. Sunfish teeth are not arranged for tearing prey into pieces the way many people picture a large hunter feeding. Instead, the teeth are fused into a beak-like structure, firm and suited to grasping and cropping soft material, while farther back in the throat are structures that help process what has been taken in. What makes this feeding possible is not sharpness, but persistence. The meal does not need to be overpowered. It needs to be gathered. That changes the whole emotional tone of predation. In many marine hunts, the drama comes from collision. Here, it comes from encounter. The prey drifts, the hunter drifts, and the meeting between them feels less like an attack than like a large life, quietly intercepting a smaller one in the path of current and light. Yet soft prey creates its own problem. A jellyfish is not a compact package of energy. Much of it is water, held in shape by tissues so delicate they can seem hardly there at all. And a giant fish feeding on such prey begins to look, again, impossible to our human sense of efficiency. We ask how something so large can live on something so diffuse. That is the right question. Part of the answer is that the ocean contains more of this kind of life than people often realize. Gelatinous animals can appear suddenly in abundance. A stretch of water that looked empty a short while before May holds scattered bells, long trailing colonies, transparent chains, and drifting ribbons, each nearly invisible until the light catches an edge or the body interrupts the blue with a softness different from water itself. In other words, the meal is not one jelly. It is a field. And part of the answer is that the sunfish is not feeding in the way we expect a large predator to feed. It is not searching for one decisive catch that justifies the effort of pursuit. It is moving through broad spaces where food is distributed thinly but repeatedly, taking what appears, continuing on, and letting the day become a long sequence of small gains that add up because the ocean is vast, and because the animal is built to keep going through that vastness without hurry. That is why patience becomes a feeding strategy. There is a strange dignity in that. To live by accumulation rather than conquest is still to live skillfully. It asks for a body that can travel long distances, senses that can register faint opportunities, and a way of spending energy that does not ruin the balance between effort and return. The sunfish begins to make sense when seen not as a failed pursuer, but as a patient collector of what the open sea offers in abundance. Researchers have found that ocean sunfish eat a varied diet, and the exact menu can differ with place, age, and opportunity. Small fish, squid, crustaceans, and bits of other animals may also be taken. But gelatinous prey remains central to the image and to much of the reality of their feeding life, especially because it fits so well with the shape of the animal's movement through pelagic space. A fish built for steady passage through open water is well matched to prey that also belongs to open water. The hunt, if it can be called that, often begins long before the moment of capture. A sunfish moves through layers where prey may be more or less likely to appear, passing through changes in temperature, brightness, and current direction that mean nothing to us unless measured, but may mean everything to an animal living inside them. A faint concentration of drifting bodies can form where water masses meet, where currents compress what they carry, or where daily vertical migrations bring fragile animals upward and outward. The sea is not empty. It is structured in quiet ways. That matters. A creature feeding on scattered softness does not survive by luck alone. It survives by inhabiting the geometry of the water correctly, by spending time where dispersed food becomes slightly less dispersed, and by repeating that choice over and over until a life is made from it. The sunfish is not browsing at random. It is reading a world that only looks blank from a distance. And yet the act itself remains gentle. When a jelly is taken, There may be trailing arms to manage, resistant tissues to pull in, and stinging cells that would discourage many animals. Sunfish are thought to have adaptations that help them handle such prey, including thick, rough skin and tissues that are less vulnerable than our own would be to the defenses of gelatinous animals. Even here, the meaning is quiet. The sea's soft bodies are not defenseless. They are simply defended in a different language, so the sunfish eats what many others avoid. That creates a kind of ecological space. Prey that is abundant but not universally desirable can support specialists, and specialists often look odd because they are shaped by opportunities most animals pass by. The sunfish begins to resemble a principle broader than itself. When a resource seems too diffuse, too inconvenient, or too strange, life sometimes answers by becoming strange in exactly the right way. Its largeness even changes the feeding equation. A small animal built on jelly alone might need to spend too much of its day searching, or might be too vulnerable while doing so, or might not cover enough water to make gelatinous prey dependable. A giant body with long, steady movement can sample far more ocean, crossing from one patch to the next, absorbing the thin arithmetic of soft meals over great distances. What seems excessive size may also be part of the solution. That is easy to miss, because we tend to think of size as demanding more and more concentrated food. Often that is true. But size can also bring reach, thermal stability, lower vulnerability to some predators, and a different relationship with patchy resources spread across enormous spaces. In the open ocean, being large may help an animal endure the long intervals between richer moments. It can turn scarcity into something manageable. There are failures too. A patch may dissolve. Currents may shift. A promising layer of prey may be thinner than it seemed. The sunfish continues anyway, because a feeding life based on scattered abundance cannot depend on every attempt succeeding. It depends on the overall pattern holding across days, seasons, and miles of water. This makes its feeding behavior feel almost mathematical. Not coldly mathematical, but patiently so. A little here, a little there, then farther on. The body does not insist on spectacle. It lets enough become enough over time, which may be one of the oldest strategies in the sea. Young sunfish do not feed in exactly the same way adults do, and diet can change as the animal grows. That matters because growth changes not only size, but access. A tiny larva occupies one world, vulnerable and selective in ways an adult no longer is, while a vast mature sunfish can take larger gelatinous prey and travel through wider ranges with a steadiness the young do not yet possess. In other words, feeding scales with life itself. The menu opens as the body opens. There is also something almost paradoxical in the sight of a giant feeding on transparency. Many of the animals sunfish consume are nearly invisible until they are close enough to become a problem or a meal. They do not announce themselves with bold color or muscular movement. They hover at the edge of sight, and a predator that depends on them is, in a sense, feeding on the ocean's faintest handwriting. That gives the whole scene a distant, dreamlike quality. Imagine blue water with almost nothing in it. Then imagine that this almost nothing is, to the right body, sufficient. Not abundant in the crowded sense of a reef, not concentrated like a bait ball of fish, but present in a looser and more spacious way. Enough for a patient traveler who knows how to move through emptiness without mistaking it for absence. The difference between those two ways of seeing is the difference between confusion and understanding. This is where the sunfish stops seeming absurd and starts seeming well-placed. Its feeding life belongs to a sea where food can be diluted across distance, where prey can be fragile but numerous, and where success may look less like triumph than like continuation. The animal is not built for a single dramatic event. It is built for a day and then another day in which soft prey appears often enough. And what it eats matters to the larger ocean too. Gelatinous animals are part of the shifting machinery of pelagic ecosystems. They consume, are consumed, bloom, collapse, sink, drift, and carry energy through pathways that can seem vague only because the bodies involved are so transparent. A sunfish feeding on them helps move that energy onward, turning ephemeral drifting life into muscle, skin, motion, and eventually into nourishment for other lives in turn. Even the softest food enters the firm economy of the sea. So much of ocean life depends on taking what vanishes quickly. A jelly bloom can gather and then be gone. A narrow band of prey can form in a current boundary and loosen by nightfall. A predator tuned to such opportunities must live with impermanence, and perhaps this is one reason the sunfish feels so calm to us. Its whole feeding strategy accepts that the world will not hold still. It only has to hold long enough. By the time a sunfish has moved through one patch and toward the next, there may be little sign that anything happened at all. No cloud of scales, no torn water, only the same broad body going on through blue distance, gathering what it can from lives so delicate they seem almost hypothetical. Yet they are enough. They are enough to support mass, migration, survival, and the continuation of one of the strangest large fish on Earth. That is the wonder pivot hidden inside this quiet meal. Not that the prey is weak, but that weakness, repeated across vast spaces, can sustain greatness. The ocean often works that way, and the sunfish has learned to trust it. So it keeps moving through open water with that same patient, unhurried rhythm, feeding where softness gathers, letting one nearly invisible meal follow another. The sea does not always provide in obvious forms. Sometimes it offers something diffuse, drifting, and easily dismissed. Sometimes that is plenty. But the body has more surprises yet. What it eats is only part of the story. Just as important is where and how it spends its time in water that is never one thing for very long. The open ocean may look empty from above, yet it is arranged in layers of temperature, brightness, and pressure, and the sunfish lives by reading those layers with quiet precision. It moves through a vertical landscape. Near the surface, the sea can be warm with sun. A little deeper, that warmth begins to thin. Far below, the water settles into a colder steadiness, and a fish passing between those zones is not just changing depth, but crossing invisible borders that shape muscles, digestion, and the pace of life itself. Depth is weather turned upright. A sunfish may spend part of its day descending well below the bright skin of the sea. There, light loosens into blue dimness. The temperature can fall sharply as the animal follows prey into colder layers. It is not drifting without aim in those moments, but entering a different room of the ocean, one where soft-bodied animals gather and where the work of feeding continues away from the surface. The descent has purpose. Then, after time in the cool dark, the fish rises again. It does not come up as a creature escaping failure below. It comes up as a body that has spent energy in colder water and may now need warmth, light, or simply a different set of conditions than the ones it just left behind. In other words, the surface is part of the hunt. This is where its most famous behavior appears. A sunfish reaches the upper water and lingers there, sometimes on its side, broad body catching the sun, one fin visible above the surface, while seabirds circle or waves lift and lower it. To people watching from a boat, it can look helpless, as though the fish has washed into a mistake and forgotten how to continue. Yet the stillness is doing something. The word basking can sound lazy to human ears. It suggests idleness, a pleasant pause, a creature simply enjoying warmth for its own sake. But in the life of a sunfish, basking is less like leisure and more like maintenance, a practical use of sunlight by an animal that regularly moves between thermal worlds. Warmth returns to the body slowly. That matters because cold changes function. Muscles perform differently. Digestion shifts. The chemistry of movement and the timing of recovery are shaped by temperature in ways that are easy to miss from the deck of a boat, where the sea appears uniform and a fish on its side seems comic rather than strategic. Yet beneath that surface impression is a body solving a problem. What makes this behavior so gentle is that the solution does not require force. The sunfish does not need to race upward or thrash to create heat. It can simply arrive in brighter water and hold there, using the day's stored warmth the way a stone wall holds afternoon sun after evening begins. Quiet can be functional too. Sometimes the fish lies almost flat near the top, presenting a wide side to the light. Sometimes it turns more upright and resumes its slow, deliberate fin strokes. Sometimes it remains long enough to attract cleaners or birds, which will matter later, but even before any visitor arrives, the posture itself suggests a body aware of exposure, angle, and heat. It is a kind of positioning. Researchers who have tracked sunfish with tags have seen this rhythm written clearly in numbers, down into colder depths, back toward warmer shallows, down again and up again, in repeated vertical journeys that can continue through day and night, though not always in the same pattern and not always for the same reason in every place. The path is layered, not random. That is why the ocean's sunfish begins to make more sense when seen from the side rather than from above. From above, it can seem to occupy only a surface world, famous mainly for flopping in the light. From the side, its life becomes a set of rises and descents through a vast column of water, as if the real territory it inhabits is not a map spread flat, but a hanging space of gradients. Home has height. The open ocean is often imagined as blank distance. Yet for animals like this, distance is only half the story. The other half is depth, and depth changes everything, because each layer offers different temperatures, different prey, different risks, and different opportunities for rest or repair, turning what looks like emptiness into a hidden architecture. Vast does not mean featureless. There are hours when a sunfish goes surprisingly deep. In some regions, tagged individuals have descended hundreds of meters, entering water cold enough that a long stay would carry real cost. Down there, the fish is moving through darkness, where sunlight no longer helps, and where each fin stroke belongs to a body gradually cooling as it searches. Hunting can borrow from the body's reserves, and when the fish comes back up, the surface answers that expense. Warmer water may help restore performance after those cold dives. Light may matter too, not only because the upper ocean is brighter, but because brightness itself marks a return to conditions where vision changes, orientation changes, and the whole body can settle into another mode of being. Upward is not retreat, it is reset. Yet not every rise is only about heat. Some studies suggest sunfish may also use surface waters in relation to oxygen, prey movements, or daily changes in the water column that shift where useful conditions can be found. The point is not that one explanation defeats all others. The point is that a behavior can have several meanings at once. That feels true to the animal itself. So much about the sunfish resists single answers. Its shape seems to ask one question while its motion answers another, and its time near the surface can be read as recovery, cleaning opportunity, orientation, feeding context, or some blend of all these, depending on the hour, the season, and the sea around it. One action can carry many purposes. This is often how life works in the open ocean. Energy is precious. Encounters are uncertain. Conditions change with depth more reliably than they change across the visible horizon. So a fish that can use the full water column is not living in one habitat, but in several stacked together, moving among them as need and opportunity quietly shift. The ocean is not flat to those inside it. There is also a kind of patience in the timing. A predator built for sudden force might attack the vertical ocean in brief explosive bursts. The sunfish does something slower. It accepts that useful things may be far apart, that warmth may need to be regained, that food may wait deeper than comfort, and that survival can depend on returning again and again between opposite conditions. Its rhythm is pendular, and yet the motion does not feel mechanical. Watching a tracked pattern on a graph, one can forget there is a living body inside each line, a fish ascending through bands of blue that gradually brighten, then descending again into water that presses colder against the skin with every meter. The graph looks simple. The experience would not be. Imagine the moment just below the surface after a deep dive. The water has softened from cold to cool, then from cool to mild. Light gathers overhead. The body turns slightly, broadside catching the day's warmth, and for a while the fish is suspended between exposure and ease, visible to sky and sea at once. It has not come here by accident. From above, this can make the animal look vulnerable. A large shape near the surface is easier to see. It may draw the attention of birds, boats, or predators. That is part of what makes basking so revealing, because it shows that the benefits of coming up are sometimes worth that visibility, and that even an animal known for seeming awkward is making a careful trade. Exposure can be chosen. In that sense, basking belongs to the same logic as diving. Each is a movement towards something needed. One reaches into cool depths where prey may be found. The other returns to bright upper water where the body can recover, interact, or prepare for another descent. Neither is passive. Together, they form a cycle. What looks from the outside like idleness is often timing. What looks like aimlessness is often orientation within a world we are not built to sense directly. We do not feel thermoclines against our skin as we cross them in a boat. We do not live by the vertical arrangement of light. The sunfish does. And this may be one reason the animal so often seems to barely function. We keep meeting it at the surface, in the brief chapter we are able to witness, and we mistake that chapter for the whole book. But a sunfish on its side in sunlight is only one moment in a larger pattern of descent, search, ascent, warming, and return. The stillness belongs to movement. There is something calming in that. The fish does not need one environment to contain everything it requires. It lives by passing between conditions, taking a little from the dark and a little from the light, using cold depths for one purpose and warm shallows for another. As though the sea becomes livable, not because any layer is perfect, but because several imperfect layers can be woven together. That is a quiet intelligence. By now, the basking sunfish begins to look less like an accident of buoyancy and more like a reader of subtle things. Temperature, light, depth, the changing arrangement of usefulness in open water. It is not pinned to the surface, and it is not claimed by the deep. It belongs to the conversation between them. So when one lies in the sunlit swell, fin lifting now and then, body broad and still against the glittering skin of the sea, the scene is gentler than it first appears. Beneath that calm is a day of vertical travel, of cooling and warming, of hidden descents and unhurried returns. The fish is not doing nothing. It is keeping time with the water. But the body has more surprises yet. In an animal this large and slow-seeming, even stillness can become a kind of conversation. A sunfish at the surface may look from far away as though it has simply paused there in the light. Yet its broadside, exposed to air and wave and waiting, can also become a signal to other lives nearby that a temporary place of work has opened in the open sea. That is why the sunfish is often not alone, even when no other sunfish are near. Its skin and outer tissues can host many kinds of parasites, both within and upon the body. What looks like one self-contained animal begins, on closer inspection, to resemble a moving landscape where smaller beings feed, cling, burrow, graze, and make their use of whatever they can find. It is a strange arrangement, but not a rare one in the ocean. Large bodies attract attention, slow bodies hold it, and a body that travels through many depths, meeting warm surface water and colder layers below, passes through different communities as if carrying news from one part of the sea to another. The sunfish becomes, in this way, not only a fish, but a place where worlds overlap. Parasites are part of that overlap. They can live on the skin, in the gills, around the mouth, and deeper within the body, each species solving in its own quiet way the problem of how to live by attaching itself to something larger. Some feed on mucus, some rasp tissue, some ride in protected folds where water continues to move, and where the host cannot easily reach. For the sunfish, this means that life is rarely experienced as a sealed boundary. Its body is not a smooth wall dividing self from sea. It is porous in the ecological sense, crossed by visitors, burdens, and small negotiations, and that may be one reason the famous basking posture matters in more than one way. Warmth may be part of the story. Access may be another. A sunfish comes upward from deeper water. It rises into brighter layers, turns its side toward the sky, and settles there with a kind of visible patience. The dorsal fin may lift a little. The body tilts. Waves touch the exposed skin, while below the surface the rest of the fish remains suspended, neither fully hidden nor fully offered, but somewhere in between. This posture changes who can reach it. Near reefs or floating debris, small cleaner fish may approach and begin to pick at the skin. They take what the sunfish would rather lose anyway: attached parasites, dead tissue, loose material caught on the surface of the body. The cleaner receives food. The sunfish receives relief. Both leave with something. What makes this so gentle is the scale of the exchange. One of the heaviest bony fishes in the world may hold itself in place so that a much smaller fish can inspect it piece by piece. The giant does not answer discomfort with violence. It becomes still enough for precision, and that stillness creates a tiny zone of trust in water that is otherwise always moving. Cleaner fish are already familiar from reefs, where larger animals visit certain spots again and again, as if returning to a known service. With sunfish, the idea grows stranger, because the cleaning station can drift into open water. The client arrives carrying its own broad platform of skin, and the work begins wherever the meeting becomes possible. The sea improvises. And yet, the relationships do not end below the surface. Seabirds have been observed landing on basking sunfish and pecking at exposed parasites from the skin. The scene is almost difficult to believe at first. A great fish resting at the top of the water, wings folding above it, a bird stepping carefully as the ocean lifts and lowers them both. It feels half practical, half dreamlike. The bird gains a meal. The sunfish may gain a reduction in irritants it cannot remove alone. But what it means is larger than that simple exchange, because the body of the sunfish briefly joins two worlds that often seem separate to us. Air and sea meet not only at the surface, but on the back of a living animal, where feathers and scales, beak and skin touch for a moment without conflict. That is why basking can be read as invitation as much as recovery. The surface is not merely a place to warm after colder dives. It can become a visible threshold where help is possible, where the fish presents what the hidden ocean usually conceals, and where the problem of carrying parasites is answered through cooperation rather than through isolation. Exposure becomes useful. There is something quietly moving in that. A creature so often described as awkward may depend, at times, on allowing itself to be approached. The solution is not sleek self-sufficiency. It is tolerance. It is the capacity to hold still while another life does very small work across a very large body. Of course, these encounters are not constant. The open ocean is too vast, too unevenly populated for any service to be guaranteed. A sunfish may bask and meet no cleaner at all. It may carry parasites for long stretches of its journey, bearing an ongoing irritation that cannot be solved immediately, and this too belongs to its world. Not every need is answered quickly in the pelagic sea. When cleaning does happen, the effect is practical, but it is also ecological. The parasite becomes food for something else. The bird or small fish translates burden into nourishment. In other words, what troubles one body sustains another, and the sunfish becomes part of that old ocean pattern in which discomfort, waste, and damage are rarely simple endings. They are passed onward. What seems like a weakness may therefore open a path into relationship. A body that gathers parasites also gathers cleaners. A body broad enough to bask also creates access from above and beside. Even vulnerability has consequences, and some of those consequences are collaborative. Life keeps making exchanges out of inconvenience. The skin itself matters here. Sunfish skin can be thick and rough, not soft in the way the rounded outline might suggest from a distance. That textured surface offers both protection and opportunity. A difficult barrier in some ways, a habitable terrain in others. Small organisms do not encounter a featureless wall. They encounter ridges, films, edges, and anchoring places. Yet thick skin does not mean perfect defense. No animal becomes large and remains untouched. In fact, great size may invite a different kind of attention because a larger surface creates more space for attachment and more time for small accumulations to matter. The sunfish reminds us that being immense does not free a creature from intimate troubles. It simply changes their scale. There is another kind of wonder here as well. We often imagine the open ocean as empty compared with reefs or coasts, a blue distance where each animal is mostly on its own. But the sunfish complicates that picture. Even far from shore, a single body can host a crowd, summon a service, feed a bird, and carry the signatures of many encounters across miles of water. In that sense, the sunfish is not solitary in the simple way we might first suppose. It may travel alone, but alone is not the same as isolated. Organisms live with it, on it, and because of it. Temporary companions arrive, do their work, and leave. The fish moves on, yet part of its life is always shared with smaller lives whose stories briefly join its own. What makes this feel so different from hunting or swimming is its passivity, though even that word is not quite right. The sunfish is not doing nothing. It is offering conditions. It rises, turns, lingers, and remains available long enough for another animal to make use of the chance. That is a behavior too, just a quieter one. And there is risk in quiet behaviors, because stillness can expose as well as invite. To linger near the surface is to become more visible. To bask is to enter a bright plain where silhouettes sharpen and the sea gives fewer places to disappear. Yet the sunfish comes there anyway, and that suggests that the benefits of this surface life can outweigh the costs often enough to matter. Behavior, then, is not always motion in the obvious sense. Sometimes it is posture, sometimes timing, sometimes the decision to remain where others can reach you. The sunfish makes a life not only by moving through water, but by entering certain positions within a web of other animals and allowing those positions to mean something. This changes how we see its famous stillness. It is no longer only rest or warming or an interval between dives. It is also participation. The fish becomes a platform, a brief island, a patient body at the boundary between layers, and around that body, a small economy forms. Parasite, cleaner, bird, tissue, attention, release. And once you notice that, the sunfish seems less like a drifting accident and more like a meeting place the sea has made. Its shape, size, and habits create opportunities for contact that a faster, narrower fish might never offer. What appears awkward to us may be perfectly suited to this slower social chemistry of the open water. Even at the level of nuisance and relief, life does not proceed alone. The sunfish carries that truth on its skin. A giant body moves through the vast blue, and attached to its days are countless smaller acts of feeding, picking, enduring, and being helped. None of them dramatic, all of them real. The ocean is full of such quiet dependencies. By the time the sunfish leaves the surface, the meeting is over. The bird lifts away, or the cleaner drifts back to its own small territory, and the fish tilts downward again into deeper blue. Nothing about the scene announces itself as important. Yet something has been exchanged, and the water closes softly behind it. And perhaps this is where the real mystery begins, not in the fish itself, but in the way we look at it. The ocean sunfish often arrives in human language as a mistake. People call it useless, awkward, broken, absurd. They speak as though the animal has somehow failed to become the thing it was meant to be, as though its body stopped halfway through a proper idea. That response is common enough to feel almost automatic, yet automatic responses are often the most revealing. What makes this fish so unsettling to us is not only its shape, it is the way that shape refuses several of our favorite expectations all at once. Because we are used to bodies that announce their purpose clearly, and we find comfort in animals that seem to move toward a recognizable pattern of efficiency, symmetry, speed, and control. The sunfish does not offer that comfort. It drifts past it. It looks wrong. That small word carries a great deal. Wrong can mean unfamiliar, but it can also mean disobedient. It can mean not arranged according to the quiet rules we did not realize we were imposing. When people laugh at a sunfish, they may be laughing at an animal, but they are also reacting to the unease of seeing life ignore a template they had mistaken for universal. We are shaped by certain visual habits. We expect a fish to taper neatly toward a tail. We expect movement to begin there in a firm back and forth rhythm. We expect large animals to look powerful in a way we instantly understand. Even our sense of beauty tends to favor forms that appear streamlined, balanced, and complete. The sunfish stands outside that familiar geometry. Its body seems cut short. Its outline feels abrupt. Its height can make it appear almost vertical, as though a fish had turned into a drifting sign. Even when it is moving well, some part of the human eye still searches for the missing pattern, for the shape it thinks should be there. And because it does not find it, it can mistake difference for deficiency. That is a very old habit. In other words, we do not only see with our eyes, we see with expectation. That expectation is built from repetition. We learn what a fish is by seeing many fish, and slowly a category settles into the mind. Later, when something arrives that does not fit the category cleanly, the first sensation can be irritation rather than wonder. The mind reaches for repair. It tries to force the new thing back into the old outline. The sunfish resists that repair. There is a quiet philosophical weight in that resistance. Categories help us live in the world. They make a vast and complicated planet more manageable. Yet every category can become a kind of blindness if we begin to love the outline more than the life inside it. And then an animal appears that does not honor the outline. And suddenly our confidence in our own definitions begins to loosen. That loosening can feel strangely personal. When people describe the sunfish as badly designed, they are usually speaking from an idea of design that is deeply human. We admire precision. We admire elegance that looks efficient to us. We admire solutions that appear economical, directed, and obvious. We often assume that the best body is the one whose purpose can be recognized at a glance. Nature is not obliged to be glanceable. The ocean does not ask whether a body makes sense to a mammal standing on land, because evolution does not move toward the approval of an outside observer, and it does not polish every creature into a form that satisfies our private taste for neatness. It works more slowly than that, more locally, more strangely. It keeps what persists. And persistence can look peculiar. This is why the language of failure is often misplaced. A body that survives, feeds, grows, reproduces, and continues through time is not a failed body in any meaningful biological sense. It may be unusual. It may be difficult for us to read. It may even seem faintly comic to a mind that prefers familiar lines. But survival has its own quiet authority. The fish is still here. That fact matters more than our opinion of its silhouette. There is also something else at work in our response, and it has to do with effort. Humans are often drawn to animals whose labor we can recognize. We admire the chase, the pounce, the leap, the visible expression of force. We like bodies that seem to strive. Even stillness is easier for us to respect when it belongs to an animal that could move explosively if it wished. The sunfish gives very little of that drama. Its life can appear passive from the outside. It basks, it drifts, it turns. It feeds on creatures that do not fit our idea of heroic prey. It does not present itself as fierce, sleek, or strategically impressive in the way many celebrated marine animals do. That is why some people read its calm as incompetence. Yet calm and incompetence are not the same. The difference matters beyond this one fish. We live inside cultures that often confuse visible intensity with value. Fast can look important. Forceful can look intelligent. Efficient can look superior. When an animal succeeds by being patient, by occupying a niche that seems soft or slow or almost accidental, it can be hard for us to grant that success full dignity. And yet, the ocean has room for many kinds of success. Some lives are built around pursuit. Some are built around concealment. Some depend on armor or venom or perfect timing. The sunfish belongs to another logic. Its existence suggests that survival does not always arrive wearing the face we expect. Sometimes it comes as a broad, strange body turning quietly through blue water, doing something that appears almost too gentle to count. It counts. What makes this especially interesting is that humans often reserve a kind of mockery for animals that seem insufficiently charismatic. We are generous toward dolphins because their movements feel fluent to us. We admire sharks because their bodies seem to fulfill our image of purpose. We are moved by whales because their scale combines with grace in a form we can almost understand as majestic. The sunfish slips past those easy categories. It is enormous, but not majestic in the usual way. It is memorable, but not for beauty in the familiar sense. It is specialized, but not in a style that advertises itself as mastery. So people sometimes treat it as a marine joke, as though the ocean had briefly become careless. But ridicule can be a defense against the discomfort of not knowing how to value what we are seeing. Some creatures are hard to admire until we stop asking them to perform for our tastes. There is a tenderness in that realization. It asks very little of us, only that we notice how quickly we assign worth according to resemblance. Because animals that mirror our ideas of grace are easier to praise, and animals that break those ideas can become screens onto which we project laziness, stupidity, or error. The sunfish receives a surprising amount of projection, not because it is empty, because it is unfamiliar. In that sense, the animal becomes almost like a test. Not a test with a score, only a quiet measure of how flexible our imagination is. Can we look at a life that does not flatter our assumptions and still grant it coherence? Can we let an organism be shaped by needs we do not share, in an environment we do not inhabit, by pressures we would barely know how to feel? That is a deeper kind of seeing. It may even be a kinder one. Not kindness in the sentimental sense, but in the sense of leaving room for reality to exceed our categories. The sunfish asks for that room simply by existing. It does not argue, it does not explain itself. It moves through the sea in its own ancient way, while humans on boats or docks or glowing screens decide whether it looks sensible. The fish remains untouched by the verdict. there is something peaceful in that. To call the sunfish absurd is, in one way, understandable. It does seem assembled from challenges to expectation, but absurdity depends on a standard being violated, and once the standard begins to dissolve, the feeling changes too. What first looked like nonsense starts to look like an alternative, then perhaps an adaptation, then, after a while, simply a life. And a life does not need to resemble our preferences to be whole. This may be one reason the sunfish lingers in the mind. It is not only large, it is not only strange. It presses gently on a habit of thought that many of us carry without noticing, the habit of assuming that the most legitimate forms of life are the ones that look composed according to principles we already admire. The sunfish interrupts that habit. Quietly, it widens the world. That widening reaches beyond biology. We do this with many things. We distrust what does not fit the expected outline. We call forms broken when they are merely unfamiliar. We assume that visible smoothness is the same as inner rightness. Yet so much of existence is stranger than the templates we inherit, and often more patient. The ocean has always known this. Beneath the surface, there is no single approved body. There is only an immense ongoing conversation between circumstance and form. Some answers become sleek, some become hidden, some become soft, some become flat and tall and oddly shortened at the rear and continue living anyway, long enough that our judgment begins to seem less like wisdom and more like haste. Haste is often where dismissal begins. The sunfish encourages another pace, not because it tries to teach us anything, but because understanding it requires us to remain with it longer than our first impression. The longer we remain, the less ridiculous it seems. Or perhaps the ridicule drains away first, and what remains is a quieter feeling, something like respect without full comprehension. That may be enough. We do not have to solve the sunfish to be changed by it. We only have to notice that our first instinct was to measure it against a design brief nature never agreed to follow. Once that becomes visible, the fish looks a little different. So do we. And then the whole encounter grows softer. A broad body in open water, a shape that once seemed wrong, a mind trying slowly to loosen its grip on what right was supposed to mean. The fish drifts on, indifferent and complete in its own manner, while our categories settle and shift around it. Some creatures fit easily into the stories we tell about life. Some remain just outside them. The ocean's sunfish may be one of those beings whose great gift is not that it answers a question, but that it leaves one resting quietly in the dark. How much of what we call natural beauty is only familiarity, and how much life have we failed to see clearly because it did not arrive in a shape we were ready to welcome? The water does not answer. It only holds the fish, vast and strange and still going. And after a while, that feels less like an error than a kind of peace. Once we stop asking whether the sunfish is elegant by our standards, a larger question begins to open. What kind of history produces a body like this? The ocean's sunfish belongs to an old and strange branch of fishes called the Tetraodontiformes, a group that also includes pufferfish, porcupine fish, triggerfish, filefish, and boxfish, animals whose shapes often seem to ignore the neat, streamlined fish form people carry in their minds. Seen together, these relatives begin to make the sunfish feel less like an isolated mistake and more like an extreme expression of a family talent for departing from expectation. It belongs. That matters. Because evolution does not begin with an ideal shape and then ask every creature to approach it as closely as possible. It works with what already exists, altering bone, skin, muscle, and behavior in small changes that accumulate over vast spans of time, until one lineage glides toward one answer and another settles into something stranger. There is no single destination. The sunfish carries signs of that long improvisation. Its relatives already suggest a certain willingness in evolution to bend the usual outline of a fish. Boxfish become angular. Pufferfish become inflatable. Triggerfish develop bodies that seem almost compressed from the side, as if the ocean had pressed them into new geometry, and they had continued living there quite comfortably. The sunfish goes farther. Yet farther does not mean better, and it does not mean worse. It means that one lineage, over ages beyond ordinary imagination, moved deeper into a possibility that was already present in its ancestry, reducing some structures, enlarging others, and arriving at a body that can seem unfinished only if we assume the familiar version was the goal all along. That assumption is very human. The sunfish's order includes fishes that often have fewer vertebrae than more conventional-looking fishes, along with fused bones and body plans that seem to favor rigidity in some places and unusual specialization in others. These are not minor details hidden inside anatomy texts. They are reminders that even the skeleton is negotiable, that life can take the hard framework of the body and treat it not as law, but as material. Bones can become argument. That is a quiet kind of wonder. When we picture evolution, many of us still imagine a ladder. At one end are simple forms, at the other are advanced ones. Between them is a procession toward improvement, as though time itself prefers complexity in one particular style, usually the style most flattering to us. But the ocean does not preserve that story very well, and the sunfish is one reason why. It drifts through the old ladder like a question. Because what would advancement even mean here? Would it mean speed, armor, predatory precision, symmetry that looks satisfying to the human eye? A body that appears balanced in the specific way we have learned to call balanced. The sunfish has little interest in these measures, and yet it lives across great stretches of ocean, grows to immense size, feeds, reproduces, and continues the line. By the oldest evolutionary standard, which is simply continued existence, it has already answered. It answered by being enough. This can feel unsatisfying at first. We are drawn to narratives of optimization. We like to believe that every successful animal must be a masterpiece of obvious efficiency, each part cleanly justified, each movement persuasive, each outline carrying the confidence of a solved equation. The sunfish suggests something else. It suggests that life often works more like a draft that keeps being used, because in the world it inhabits, the draft is good enough to continue. Good enough, over millions of years, becomes its own kind of brilliance, not polished, proven. The lineage leading to modern sunfish extends back through deep fish history into worlds where oceans were arranged differently, climates shifted, coastlines moved, and entire marine communities changed around them. Their exact form has not remained fixed, of course. No lineage is a fossil while it lives. Yet the branch itself has persisted, carrying forward a style of being that survived because it kept finding a way to fit the water it met. That is a patient success. Ancient, but not old-fashioned. That distinction matters too. We often speak of ancient animals as though they were relics, as though survival across deep time means being left behind by the modern world rather than continuously remade within it. But an animal alive now is fully modern, no matter how distant its ancestry. The sunfish is not a leftover. It is the current version of an old experiment that has not ended. And perhaps experiments do not always end. Perhaps some simply continue. What makes this unsettling in a gentle way is that it asks us to let go of the idea that evolution is always refining creatures towards sleekness, control, and visual coherence. Sometimes it does produce those things. Sharks can seem almost mathematical in their precision. Tuna can look like motion turned into muscle. But other lineages move toward bulk, reduction, asymmetry, softness, or forms that seem, at first glance, oddly casual. The ocean has room for many answers at once. That is why comparison can mislead us. A sunfish is not a failed tuna. It is not an incomplete shark. It is not a fish on its way to becoming something more sensible. It is itself, shaped not by our categories, but by inherited possibilities, ecological pressures, and the long, slow negotiation between body and sea. In other words, it does not need to resemble our favorite forms to be real. There is dignity in that, a quiet dignity. Not the dignity of grace as humans usually define it, but the dignity of persistence without apology. The sunfish does not conceal its strangeness. It does not streamline itself to spare us discomfort. It moves through open water in a body that reveals, almost too clearly, that life is under no obligation to become beautiful in familiar ways. And yet, once that truth settles, another beauty begins, a wider one. It becomes possible to see evolution not as an engineer chasing perfection, but as a patient improviser, working from old materials in changing conditions, trying one modification, then another, preserving what remains viable, discarding what does not, and occasionally arriving at forms so unusual that they seem almost fictional to the creatures watching from shore. The sunfish belongs to that improvisation. Its body is not a diagram of ideal design. It is a record of accumulated permission to differ. There is something almost comforting in that thought. The living world does not advance by narrowing itself toward one final shape. It diversifies. It branches. It repeats certain themes and abandons others. It returns, in new forms, to old problems like movement, feeding, defense, and reproduction, and each lineage answers according to what it has inherited, what it encounters, and what it can alter without losing itself entirely. The result is not a perfected plan. It is a vast conversation. The sunfish is one of its quieter sentences, and yet quiet does not mean small. To drift as a giant through pelagic space in a body descended from a lineage of already unusual fishes is to make a large statement without intending to. The statement is not that weirdness wins. Nature is not sentimental about weirdness. The statement is subtler than that. It is that success in life can look very different from the forms we admire most quickly. Sometimes success looks almost unfinished. This may be part of why the sunfish stays in the mind. Not only because it is big, or strange, or easy to describe with a kind of baffled affection, but because it presses against an old habit in us. We expect the long-lived and successful to appear assured. We expect them to wear their fitness visibly, as if survival should produce an air of obvious competence. The sunfish survives without offering that reassurance. It asks to be accepted before it is understood, and perhaps never fully understood. That is all right. There are animals that seem to meet the human mind halfway, offering patterns we recognize at once. The sunfish does not do that. It remains slightly distant, even when we know more about it. Its ancestry helps, of course. Knowing that it comes from a lineage already comfortable with altering the usual fish blueprint allows the body to make more sense. But sense is not the same as familiarity. Some creatures remain strange even after explanation, maybe especially after explanation. Because explanation reveals how deep the strangeness goes. It is not just that the sunfish looks unusual. It is that its existence shows how loose our mental categories really are. We think we know what a fish should be, until a fish arrives that is tall where we expect length, blunt where we expect taper, calm where we expect force, and perfectly alive in that arrangement. Then the category itself begins to soften. It becomes less a rule and more a range. Life likes ranges, wide ones. In that way, the sunfish becomes more than an animal and less than a symbol. It does not exist to teach us a lesson. It simply makes certain assumptions harder to keep. The assumption that evolution moves in a straight line. The assumption that success always looks elegant. The assumption that ancient lineages are primitive, or that unusual bodies are evidence of failure. One large, slow fish in open water can unsettle all of that just by continuing to be there. Continuing matters. There is a humility in realizing that many living things do not fit our aesthetic theories of what ought to work. And yet, they have been answering the sea for longer than our species has existed. The sunfish, in its own branch of time, carries that humility quietly. Not as a rebuke, more as an invitation to loosen our grip on certainty and let the world remain broader than our preferences, broader, stranger still. And when seen that way, the phrase ancient experiment begins to feel less like a metaphor and more like a description of life itself. Not a march, not a ladder, a series of enduring trials, some brief, some long, some branching into radiance, some drifting onward in forms that seem almost improbable, until improbability itself becomes ordinary in the sea. The sunfish is one of those ordinary improbabilities. It does not need to resolve into perfection. It only needs to go on. Somewhere beyond sight, beneath a surface that reflects the last pale light back into the sky, a sunfish is moving through water in the shape its lineage found, not ideal, not final, simply workable and real, carrying within that strange body millions of years of adjustment, accident, inheritance, and survival. The history is immense. The movement is slow, and still it drifts on. That may be enough to rest with. Not the promise that everything in nature makes immediate sense, and not the comfort of thinking all mysteries can be smoothed into neat conclusions, but the softer comfort of knowing that life has always been larger than our templates for it. Some forms dazzle us at once. Some ask for patience. The sunfish is patient. The ocean, too, is patient. Together they hold this old experiment without hurry and without embarrassment, letting it remain what it is, a living branch of possibility, a distant relative of puffers and boxfish, an answer shaped over ages, and a reminder that the world does not become more beautiful by becoming more uniform. It becomes more beautiful by remaining various. Then even strangeness can settle. Even strangeness can feel familiar. And in that softer understanding, the sunfish grows quieter again. No longer a joke of anatomy or a puzzle demanding resolution, but a large and ancient presence in dark water, continuing in the old way as countless lineages have continued before it, without needing to resemble an ideal that was never there. It is enough. It has been enough for a very long time. The water is colder here, not sharply colder. Just enough that a body notices and alters itself in answer. In the open ocean, home is often not a place that can be pointed to, because there may be no reef, no rock, no shelf, no edge at all, only changing layers of brightness and temperature, ribbons of current, and the slow geometry of depth unfolding beneath a creature that lives by reading differences most human eyes would barely detect. It is a quiet kind of map. For animals near coasts, belonging can seem easier for us to imagine. There are landmarks there. There is a bottom to follow, a shape to memorize, a familiar place to leave and return to. Yet the sunfish belongs to a world that can look almost empty from above. And perhaps that is one reason it feels so strange to us, because we often trust solid boundaries to make a life seem real, while pelagic life unfolds in a vastness where structure exists without walls, and orientation comes not from objects but from gradients. The ocean is not blank, it is subtle. A current is one kind of road. A temperature boundary is another, though it cannot be seen in any simple way. Light itself becomes a kind of architecture in the upper ocean, fading with depth not all at once, but in patient degrees, so that an animal moving upward or downward is not merely changing position, but entering a different version of the same immense room, one warmer, one dimmer, one full of surface brightness, one held in dark blue quiet. The water keeps rearranging the house. That is why the open sea asks for a different imagination. To us, emptiness often suggests absence. To an animal shaped by pelagic life, emptiness may be a field of information. The sunfish moves through a world where the important boundaries do not stay still, and where what matters may be a change in pressure across a descent, a shift in warmth after a deep dive, the drift of prey through a moving band of water, or the pull of a current that carries the body toward one region and away from another without ever presenting a visible line to cross. It is a strange kind of familiarity. We are often comforted by edges. A room has corners, a forest has trunks, a road has margins. Even the night sky, though vast, is viewed from land. But the sunfish lives within a medium that surrounds from every side, and that fact changes the feeling of existence itself. Because there is no simple distinction between path and place when one can rise, sink, glide forward, tilt into current, and occupy a three-dimensional quiet where direction is never only ahead but also below, above, and through. Home becomes volume. What makes this difficult for us is how much of our own belonging depends on permanence. We return to things that wait where we left them. We know ourselves partly by what stays. And yet, the open ocean offers another model, one in which belonging may come less from staying near a fixed object and more from knowing how to remain within the right conditions as they shift, so that orientation becomes an act of continual adjustment, a soft conversation between body and world, rather than a memorized route back to something solid. It is belonging by response. The sunfish is well suited to that. Not because the open ocean is easy, but because its life is already tuned to broad spaces, changing depths, and prey that drift rather than hide. A body can become a kind of instrument in such a place, sensitive to warmth, buoyancy, movement, and the layered character of water itself. And when we think of the sunfish in that way, it begins to seem less like a lonely giant in an empty sea, and more like a listener moving through a vast and finely textured song. The scale changes the meaning. Solitude, too, begins to look different there. On land, solitude often means separation from activity, from noise, from others. In the pelagic world, solitude may simply be the normal spacing of life, because the open sea is so large that encounters are precious partly for their rarity. And each crossing with another body, another school, another drifting cluster of organisms happens inside expanses of blue that do not feel deserted to the animals within them so much as spacious, breathable, and true to scale. Distance is part of the design. That may be one of the deepest difficulties in understanding the sunfish. We see a single animal adrift and think of isolation in human terms. Yet an ocean creature does not need company arranged in our pattern to belong to its environment, and the sunfish especially seems to remind us that a life can be fully fitted to a world that offers long intervals of apparent aloneness, where continuity comes from the sea itself, from repeated movements through familiar kinds of water, rather than from constant social presence. The world is company enough. There is a kind of courage in that. Not the bright courage of struggle, but the quiet courage of existing where there are few obvious markers to reassure you. The open ocean asks an animal to trust signals that are partial, shifting, and often invisible, and in that sense, the sunfish becomes a guide to another form of confidence, one based not on mastery, but on attunement, on letting the body read what the eye cannot fix, and allowing subtle differences to be enough. Enough is important. So much of pelagic life depends on enough. Enough warmth after cold depth, enough prey in a drifting patch, enough lift, enough motion, enough water carrying the right temperature. In other words, the open sea is not a place where certainty gathers itself into clear shapes for long. And perhaps that is why its residents can seem dreamlike to us, because they inhabit a world made less of firm objects than of passing conditions, and they survive by recognizing patterns that never quite hold still. Stability becomes dynamic. The sunfish does not settle in the way a bottom-dwelling animal settles. Its stillness is mobile. Its rest is threaded through movement. Its world arrives while it moves through it. And yet, there is no reason to think this makes the ocean less like home, because home has never truly required walls. It has only required a reliable relationship between an organism and the conditions that let it continue. And the sunfish appears to have found that relationship in one of the least wall-bound places on Earth. A drifting home is still a home. Imagine the upper ocean not as empty blue, but as layered weather beneath the surface. Warm skin above, cooler distance below. Streams within streams, each with its own pace. What seems blank from a boat can, for a body living inside it, be full of meaningful transitions. And the sunfish's life suggests that a landscape does not have to be visible in the human sense to have contour, because contour can be thermal, directional, luminous, and alive with gradients that gently sort the sea into zones of effort, feeding, recovery, and passage. The map is made of feeling. This has a philosophical weight to it. We often assume that to know a world is to see it clearly, name its objects, and arrange them into categories. Yet many animals know by contact rather than overview, by moving through changes rather than standing outside them. And the sunfish, in its spacious pelagic life, presses softly against the human habit of placing vision at the center of understanding, as though what cannot be neatly outlined must be vague. Vague to us is not vague to life. The open ocean may be one of the best places to remember that. It is vast, but not empty. It is repetitive, but not uniform. It is quiet, but not still. A creature can spend its entire existence there and never once need the kind of hard boundary we might instinctively look for, because the sea offers another order, one written in currents, light fields, temperature bands, and depths that return not as places with names, but as conditions with meaning. Meaning can be soft. And perhaps that is why the sunfish feels almost meditative to contemplate. Its body, so often treated as a joke, is actually moving through one of the most spacious homes on Earth without panic, without hurry, without needing the world to become more solid than it is. There is dignity in that kind of belonging, especially because it asks so little from our usual ideas of control, and instead suggests that life can root itself in a fluid world by learning patterns gentle enough to be missed, patient enough to be trusted, and stable enough to hold even when they cannot be grasped. Some homes are held, not built. For us, there may always be something unsettling in that. A horizon with no edges beneath it, a blue field with no clear center, a life sustained by subtle change. And yet the sunfish remains there, turning through that immense pelagic quiet, not as a castaway in the wrong place, but as a resident of a home so large and so lightly structured that it asks us to loosen our definitions and let belonging mean something wider than shelter, wider and softer. So the open ocean becomes less an absence than a kind of presence, a patient presence, a hidden architecture, a distant and familiar vastness. And the sunfish moving within it offers one final thought before the night grows softer still, that a world can seem almost empty and still be full of guidance, full of pattern, full of ways to belong that do not announce themselves loudly, but simply hold a life, hour after hour, in blue water that never stops shifting and never quite stops being home. It is enough. The water is colder here. You are already moving, not quickly and not in a straight line, but with that steady, patient exchange between your long fins, one lifting as the other answers, until your whole body glides upward through blue that has not ended for a very long time. There is no trail behind you, no sharp burst of effort, only a slow turning that carries your great flat body through layers of dim and brighter water. It is enough. Depth is not a place you leave all at once. It loosens its hold gradually. The dark thins. A faint brightness gathers above you, more sensed than seen at first, until the water around your skin begins to change character, becoming lighter, gentler, touched by warmth descending from far overhead. You rise into it. Your body knows these differences before thought could ever name them. Cool below, warmer above. The open ocean is not empty to you because it is made of gradients, and each one presses softly against your life, telling you where to go, where to linger, when to descend, when to return. The world is subtle. It is still enough. Near the surface, the light broadens. It does not strike in beams so much as settle across you, thin and pale at first, then fuller, until your heavy body receives heat the way stone receives morning. You tip slightly. One side opens to the sunlit water. You drift there. From outside, it might look like idleness. From within, it feels exact. The warmth spreads across your skin and into the quiet mass of you, and what seemed like simple floating becomes a pause with purpose, a way of letting the upper ocean leave something with you before the deeper blue asks for your return. You do not hurry. The surface is a strange roof. Beneath it, the sea brightens into a familiar softness, and you remain just under that wavering ceiling where the world above exists only as broken glare and passing shadows. Your dorsal fin rises. Your anal fin balances below. Between them, you hold. Sometimes the water around you gathers company. Small mouths work carefully along your skin. Tiny bodies flicker in and away, then return, attending to places you cannot reach and do not need to reach, because in this wide pelagic life, even solitude has its meetings. You remain patient. The touches are light, a faint picking here, a brief brushing there. Nothing violent, nothing urgent, only the quiet exchange of one life offering a surface and another making a living from what that surface carries, until your own large stillness becomes, for a while, a little harbour in open water. Then it passes. A shadow crosses above, broad wings of a bird, a moving darkness over brighter glare. It comes and goes without altering the calm beneath, and if it settles near you for a moment, if tiny feet and a small weight arrive from the air to the place where your body meets the upper world, that too belongs to the day. You bear it. Then it is gone. The sea does not insist on a single kind of neighbor. Fish, birds, parasites, cleaners. Your own body is never only your own in quite the way land animals might imagine, because to move through this blue is also to be found, to be used, to be tended, to become for a moment part of other hungers and other routines. You drift among them. Warmth has entered you now, not all at once, not dramatically, just enough that some deep, quiet measure has shifted, and the bright roof of the surface no longer holds you as it did a little while ago. The downward water calls in its old familiar way. You begin to fold back into it. The descent is not a fall. It is a surrender to a deeper layer, chosen and gradual, carried by the same patient beating of your fins that brought you upward before. Light dims around the edges first. The blue thickens. The warmth on your body becomes memory more than touch. You glide down. What was broad and bright above becomes distant. What was distant below becomes present again, and with it comes that old spacious feeling of inhabiting not a line across the sea, but a tall world, one arranged in layers, each with its own temperature, pressure, dimness, and drifting life. You move through levels of quiet. There is food here, not chased, not cornered, not taken through speed. Something soft waits ahead, nearly transparent, scarcely separate from the water except for the slight way it gathers light, and you meet it without drama, opening and closing around it as one more drifting thing becomes part of your own slow persistence. The hunt is gentle. One jelly leads to another, or perhaps it does not. There are long stretches between them sometimes, and those stretches are not empty of purpose, because your life was never built around frenzy or certainty, but around the acceptance of wide searching, sparse rewards, and the calm efficiency of taking what the ocean offers when it finally appears. You continue. Soft prey dissolves quickly. There is little resistance in it, little struggle. The meal is almost more sensation than event, a cool, yielding contact, a slight fullness afterward, and then once again the long blue intervals, where movement itself becomes the steady frame holding the day together. You glide on. Your body does not resemble urgency. It does not need to. broad, flattened, unfinished to other eyes, cut short where a different fish would carry a tail. You move with a logic that never needed to look familiar in order to work. And from within your own motion there is no absurdity at all, only balance, lift, drag, turning, correction, and the simple fact of being carried forward. It is coherent here. The sea receives your shape without question. That may be one of the quietest truths in this life. Nothing in the water laughs at the blunt end of you, or mistakes your height for excess, or asks why your body chose this answer instead of another, because the open ocean is not interested in resemblance to an ideal. It asks only whether you can live here. You can. The current shifts, not enough to disturb you, just enough to be felt along your skin as a broad change in pressure, a soft insistence from one side, then another, until your fins make their measured adjustments, and your course alters by degrees so small they would be lost on anything impatient. You settle into the new line. Above and below, distances remain immense, yet you are not lost in them. The ocean has no walls, but it has texture, and you know it through your body, warmer, colder, brighter, dimmer, quieter, richer. The subtle map written not in landmarks, but in changes. You belong to changes. At times, you turn almost sideways. The light catches differently then. One fin works against brightness while the other enters dimmer water, and your whole body seems to become a slow revolving disc, a great living surface adjusting itself to the shape of the moment, neither rigid nor hurried, only responsive. Then you level again. Far off, something larger moves. A passing darkness in deeper blue, a suggestion of another body not your own. It remains distant enough that it never becomes a story, only one more sign that the water is full in ways the eye cannot hold for long. And then it is gone back into the vastness where most things remain partial, sensed only briefly before returning to hidden life. The sea closes softly around the absence. You keep going. That is much of this life. Not conquest, not display, not a sequence of dramatic events, but continuation through water that keeps changing slowly around you, while your own large body answers with equal slowness, making a day not from sharp moments, but from sustained relation to light, depth, and drifting prey. It is a patient existence. Somewhere in you, old growth remains, not as memory in the human sense, but as the truth of what has happened. The minute beginning long since carried into this vast adult body, the almost impossible enlargement folded so completely into the present that it no longer feels miraculous from inside. You are simply this size now, and that, too, is quiet. To have once been almost nothing visible in the world, and now to move through it as a broad, heavy presence, is not a triumph you announce. It is only the form your life has taken, the scale into which you have grown, until even your drifting has become the drifting of something immense. The ocean makes room. The brighter hours begin to soften. Light still reaches down, but more gently now. It loses some of its hard silver quality and becomes diffuse, as though the day itself were easing its grip on the surface. And with that softening, your path bends downward again, toward cooler water and dimmer blue, toward the old comfort of depth settling back around you. You descend. The world narrows in brightness and widens in calm. Colors fade first, then contrast, then the sense that anything above should matter very much at all. What remains is pressure held evenly along your body, the slow labor of your fins, the deepening quiet, and the familiar knowledge that below the bright roof of the day there is always another layer ready to receive you. You enter it. There is less to do now. A final soft prey, perhaps. A last adjustment to current. Then longer intervals with nothing but movement and water, until even movement begins to feel smaller, more economical, as though the day were drawing its edges inward and asking less of you with each passing stretch of darkening blue. You answer by slowing. Your fins still work, but each beat seems farther from the next. The water around you is cooler now and steady, and your large body rides within it with a kind of ancient acceptance, neither resisting nor yielding entirely, only inhabiting the layer that suits this hour, where the brightness above has become remote, and the lower world is not yet black, only dim. You remain there. The sea is quieter when light withdraws, not silent, never fully silent. There are always distant motions, faint pressures, the hidden presence of lives crossing lives somewhere beyond your knowing. But the upper glitter has gone, and with it some outwardness of the day, leaving behind a more interior blue, where each small correction of your fins feels sufficient and complete. You drift. There is no need to prove the logic of your body here. It is already being lived. In the slow exchange of fin against water, in the ease with which you hold yourself between sinking and rising, in the way the cooling sea fits around your flattened shape, as though this answer had been waiting all along, your existence continues without argument. The dark understands. You turn once more, a long, unhurried arc, then less. The current carries part of the work now, and you let it, allowing your body to settle into its broad profile, neither climbing nor sinking much, simply suspended in the patient middle, where the water presses from all sides with equal calm and the day thins toward night. You are safe in this layer. Around you, the vast ocean remains vast. That has not changed, but it no longer feels empty in any lonely way, because your whole body is tuned to its gradations, and even in dimness there are textures to rest within. Coolness, buoyancy, the faint slip of current, the stable dark where nothing asks for sudden action. The world holds you gently. Now the fins move only a little, a lift, an answer, then stillness between. Longer stillness each time, until the motion becomes so spare it feels less like traveling than remaining. A giant body poised in dark water, balanced by habit and design, with no audience, no judgment, and no need to appear graceful to anything except the sea itself. The sea is satisfied. You drift. You settle within the drifting. The day has become depth, and depth has become a kind of shelter, not enclosed, not bounded, but steady in the ways that matter, cool against your skin, dim around your eyes, patient everywhere. Nothing presses you to continue faster than this. So you do not. You remain suspended in the dark blue, immense and quiet, your broad body barely turning, your fins almost still now. While the water moves past in such a soft, constant way, it is hard to tell whether you are drifting through the ocean or the ocean is drifting through you. It does not matter. For a while, nothing changes. That is enough. You are here, held in cool water beneath the vanished light, no longer rising, not yet needing to descend, simply resting in the open sea where your strange shape has always made perfect sense. Everything is still. And after all that strangeness, what remains is something surprisingly simple. The ocean's sunfish does not need to resemble our idea of a proper fish in order to belong fully to the sea. It does not need elegance in the familiar sense or the kind of power we recognize quickly, or a shape that reassures the human mind. What makes this giant so quieting in the end is the way it continues without apology, held by an ancient logic that is strange to us and completely natural to itself. It belongs. That may be the gentlest thing it offers. For a long time, people have looked at the sunfish and seen only awkwardness, a body cut short, a movement that seems uncertain, a life that appears to drift more than decide. Yet beneath that first impression is another possibility, one that asks less from judgment and more from patience. Perhaps not every successful life announces its purpose in a language we immediately understand. Perhaps some lives are built for conditions we have never had to meet, and that changes the feeling of it. Because then the sunfish becomes more than an odd outline near the surface. It becomes a reminder that life keeps making room for forms that seem improbable, and that improbability is not failure, but freedom, a sign that the living world is wider than our habits of seeing. In other words, the sea did not produce a mistake here. It produced a solution so specific to its own vast, drifting world that from shore it can look almost unreal. It is real, and quietly that matters. There is something restful in meeting a creature that does not seem designed to impress us. The sunfish does not ask to be admired for speed or symmetry or precision. It simply persists in its own shape, in its own rhythm, in its own patient exchange with light, depth, warmth, and food. That is why it can feel, after a while, less like an exception and more like a soft correction to the way we measure worth in bodies, including our own. Not everything has to look efficient to be well made. Not everything has to appear graceful to move with meaning. Not everything has to fit an old outline to be complete. And yet the ocean is full of such forms, each one answering the same old questions of survival with a different arrangement of matter, motion, and time. The sunfish is only one answer, but it is a large and strangely tender one. You can let that tenderness settle now. Let your jaw unclench fully, if any small effort still remains there. Let your hands rest open or nearly open, with nothing to hold and nothing required of them. Let the weight of your body be plain and steady beneath you, heavy in the kind way that comes when there is nowhere to be and nothing left to finish. Your eyes are heavy too. They can stay that way. If any thoughts are still passing through, they do not need to be arranged. Let them drift as the sunfish drifts, without needing a straight line, without needing to prove where they are going. Some things in life move by gliding between currents, by rising and settling, by trusting a world larger than planning. There is a deep relief in that, a soft permission. You do not have to make yourself more polished than you are. You do not have to become sleek or certain or easily explained. The living world has always contained room for the unusual, the slow, the soft, the forms that seem almost impossible until you realize they have been quietly working all along. That is what the sunfish leaves behind in the mind. Not a lesson exactly, but a gentler standard of belonging. To exist strangely is still to exist well. And to rest is also a way of belonging. So the great fish remains where it has always been, somewhere beneath a shifting skin of light, turning through its vast and hidden home with no knowledge of our opinions, no interest in our categories, and no need to defend the shape it was given. There is peace in that distance. There is peace in letting it remain mysterious, and in letting yourself remain unforced, unfinished, and enough for this quiet moment. The night can hold the rest. Let the face soften. Let the tongue rest. Let the space behind the eyes go dark and still. Let the shoulders be carried by the surface beneath them. Let the body grow a little heavier, as though it has finally remembered that it does not need to keep itself lifted. There is nowhere to go now. Only this quiet, only this soft descent into rest, only the sense of something immense and gentle still moving in the distant ocean, exactly as it should, while here, in the dark, you are allowed to settle in your own way too. Good night.